This little plier saved me a lot of grief. It clamps onto the spark plug boot and gives you the leverage to wiggle it off without fighting it. More details on this soon. Hello everyone, welcome back to my Sling TSI build log. This one is short. The main job today is the oil purge, priming the engine's oil system before it runs. But before I got to that, I had a few small jobs to clear first. So let me run through those quickly. First off, the safety wire on the propeller. My friend Brian, who's an IA and AMP, looked at it the other day and told me I've done it wrong. He showed me how to do it properly, and I took the rest off and redid it the right way. The wire forms an S pattern that ties two screws together, so neither one can back off. It's kind of important to get this right for obvious reasons. Next, the wiring. After the oil lines went in, I went back through the engine wiring and swapped out the household zip ties for proper Telzel ties, and added rubber standoffs to bundle the wires up next to the oil lines. The main thing is making sure no wire touches the engine anywhere. That took about 4 hours by itself. And after that, it's the air filter. The inlet didn't line up with the duct in the cowl. I had to rotate it about 20 degrees. But once I did, the two ducts bumped into each other before the cowling would go all the way on. So I cut a chunk off the duct at the bottom cowling so they clear. So yeah, that's the small stuff. Now the main job. So, oil purge. The 915 is a dry-sump engine. The oil lives in a separate tank and gets pumped around, instead of sitting at the bottom of the engine. Before the engine runs for the first time, you want oil actually up in the system, not dry. The purge is how you prime it. You turn the engine over by hand and push oil through until the pressure comes up. Rotax has a procedure for it, so I follow that. First, I pull the spark plug's connectors off, and this is where that plier comes in. The boots are stiff, and it's hard to get a grip on them by hand, so you clamp the plier on and wiggle them loose. Mine came from Sami Racing, and it made this part very easy. Then I take one spark plug out of each cylinder. With the plugs out, there's no compression, so the engine turns over freely by hand, and I disconnect the oil return lines and run them into a bottle, so the oil that comes through has somewhere to go instead of making a mess. Now I fill the oil up to the max line, then it's time to turn the engine over. The way you do that is just grab the propeller and crank it by hand. For me, it was about 100 turns. Each turn, the oil pump moves a little oil through, and the pressure slowly builds. The catch is, I'm doing this all along. The oil pressure shows up on the Garmin in the cockpit, but I'm standing out at the propeller. I can't see it from there. So I put a GoPro in the cockpit, pointed at the screen, and used my phone as a remote viewer. That way I could watch the gauge on my phone right next to me and crank the prop at the same time. For a while, the oil pressure just sits at zero when you crank. There's nothing. Then it starts to come up. I kept going until it read about 5 psi on the dash, which is what tells me the oil has made it all the way through and the system is primed. Once it held there, I finished my cranking. After that, it's putting it back together. I poured the overflow oil back into the canister and poured more oil to keep the dipstick level at max. Then the spark plugs go back in. I put a little heat paste on the threads per the Rotax instruction and keep it off the tip so it doesn't foul the plugs. Connectors back on, return lines back on, and the oil system is primed and ready for first start. So that's the oil purge completed. The system's primed, the wiring tidied up, and the safety wires are redone the right way. Still on my list, finishing the air filters and working towards attaching the wings and first engine start. Thanks for watching and see you next time.